I'm Michelle, and we're going to talk about how I and you can use mindfulness, compassion, and connection to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Breaking free from the shame spiral in your parenting. Hello, I'm Michelle. Before I get into today's show, I want to tell you about the morning reset that is new, and it's a reset to move from chaos to connection with your kids in the morning. It's going to be 4 practical steps to implement in less than a few hours that you can start the day after you watch the recording to calm the morning chaos and create a more connected routine. It's now available as a mini course, and it's less than an hour, and it'll have practical takeaways that you can start using tomorrow. So again, I'm Michelle, and I help parents who want to parent peacefully, to foster strong relationships with their kids, and at times find it very, very challenging. When my kids were small, I found myself so overwhelmed and burnt out that not only did I struggle with responding peacefully or playfully, I got caught in an awful yelling pattern, followed by overwhelming shame because yelling was the last thing that I wanted to do as a parent. Now, let's talk about how I and you can use the science of mindfulness and self-compassion to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Breaking free from the shame spiral. So when I finally learned to pause, which if you've been listening to the last couple of episodes, is difficult to learn to pause. When I finally learned to pause, I was relieved and grateful that I could pause mid yelling or losing it with my kids, or even sometimes before I started to lose it or yell. And then I was confronted with a new challenge that I didn't expect: the shame spiral. I'd be about to lose it or mid losing it. I'd remove myself. Then the shame spiral would take over. Thank goodness for all of Brene Brown's work. I think I've read most of her books, which are all awesome. So I was familiar with shame, and I knew what was happening. And I knew that the shame was telling me that I was bad versus that I was struggling or having a hard time. I also was familiar with Kristen Neff's work around self-compassion and Tara Brach's work around self-compassion. And I knew that these were the antidotes to shame. And that's why I created the guided pause and regroup, aka the rage break. It was inspired by Kristen Neff's self-compassion break, because this is what would happen. I would be, in the kitchen asking my kids to do something, and then they'd push back and complain, and or they'd start fighting, or something like this would unfold, and I would get triggered. I would be hooked. I would be ready to launch in to laying down the law and getting angry and like going from 0 to 100. And I recognized I'm gonna yell, so this isn't gonna go well. I'm gonna remove myself. I would take myself into the bathroom. That was my safe place. And then I would crumble into tears and, thoughts of why can't I keep it together? I'm a therapist. Why am I yelling? Why do I get so reactive? Why do I get so overwhelmed? Why do I get so angry? All of these questions, right? So it's just this overwhelming shame spiral. And the sad thing is, I would come out and be kind of like a zombie, a former, like a bad version of my former self, just and then my kids would be moved on. They would be, not bothered by whatever had just happened, and they're on with their lives. But I was then kind of detached and withdrawn, and at the very least kind of down for the rest of the day, and sometimes even for days. So the shame spiral was having a huge impact, even though I was able to pause and not yell. So it was important. It was important that I address this and do something different. And now I can see with parents that that's part of what keeps them from pausing in the first place, is that under the anger are difficult emotions, right? And so parents struggle with pausing because those difficult emotions will come to the surface, right? And sometimes anger is kind of more manageable because it feels like we're doing something and can do something. And when we pause, we can kind of feel like helpless because now we're feeling all those bad feelings and we're not doing something with them, right? So it is so critical that we have tools as parents to use in those moments. So let's talk about how you can apply this stuff. So first, noticing the difference between guilt and shame. And the way that Brene Brown describes it, I think is really helpful, which is guilt is I did something bad. Like, okay, I messed up. I got really upset. Like, I wonder what's happening with me. Why am I getting upset? Maybe I'm sleep deprived or had a bad day at work or whatever it was. Shame is I am bad. I am bad. I'm a bad parent. I'm a bad person. I'm hurting my kids. I'm harmful. I am bad. That's what shame says to us. That's why shame makes us want to crawl in a hole and hide ourselves away. And the thing about shame is that it grows and thrives in darkness, right? So the more that we hide ourselves away and we tell ourselves that we're terrible and we're the only ones, the more that shame is sort of in control and reinforcing those ideas. Versus if we are able to talk to someone and tell someone, especially if it's another parent, they'll probably respond to you with like, yeah, I do that too. Or yeah, that happened to me today, right? But oftentimes when we're in shame, we don't want to tell anybody. We don't want to tell anybody that we yelled. We don't want to tell anybody that we overreacted or lost it, or that we can't, we feel like we can't control ourselves, or we lose it so easily, even if it's not outwardly, inwardly, right? So we don't want to tell anybody, and we are afraid because shame says we're the only ones and everybody else is doing it well, and we're the only ones that are screwing up and doing it terrible, right? So it just kind of compounds. So again, noticing the difference between guilt and shame. And what happens for you when you begin to have those thoughts or feelings. Like for myself, I described that I would feel more withdrawn, I would feel down, I would feel just kind of flat, sometimes like numb. So what happens for you when you have those thoughts? Just maybe they feel like, oftentimes we use the word guilt instead of shame. So whatever word fits best for you, when you have those overwhelming thoughts of how bad you are, or how you're worried you're harming your kids, or whatever it is that you have, those thoughts you have in those moments, what do you know, how do you notice those thoughts impact you? What do you think happens on the outside? Do you also get more withdrawn, sullen, down, just maybe smile less, a little bit less communicative, chatty? Do you just kind of go numb and like you're going through the motions? Do you maybe pull out your phone and distract yourself from those difficult feelings and just zone out? Zone out in front of the TV, phone, shopping, whatever. There's so many things that we do when we're feeling these difficult thoughts. What do you do? What do you think happens on the outside? What do you think your kids see, if anything? And self-compassion, thankfully, this isn't all bad news. There's good news. There's good news. The good news is self-compassion is an amazing antidote to shame. And it's powerful. It's really actually very powerful antidote to shame. And people might object to self-compassion. People do object to self-compassion, and there's good reasons. Um, so I want you to think about who might have used those, who might have used shame to try to help you when you were growing up, to try to motivate you or push you or get you to do the things that they wanted you to do. Was there anybody that said, like, what are you doing? Come on, like, get it together. Why are you doing that? Was there anybody that kind of used shame as a motivator? Or if you're like, I don't know if it was shame, but they certainly made me feel guilty. Okay, so replace shame with guilt. Was there anybody, like, if you notice the thoughts that you have, consider, where did I first hear those kinds of things? Did they all come from within me? They certainly could have. Often, like, could be like more media or maybe things that you heard people say and you kind of internalize them, about themselves, but you internalize them. Or maybe someone was saying these things to you directly and as a way of trying to help you or trying to motivate you or trying to get you to do the things that you wanted to do. And I would be curious about, how was that for you? Was it helpful? Sometimes people will say, yes, that helped me. It helped me do better. Helped motivate me. And so then I would be curious, and sometimes it helped situationally then. So I would be curious about, is it still helping you now? Essentially, people describe feeling afraid to let up on themselves, to not be hard on themselves, because they feel like being hard on themselves is the way to do better, to change their behavior. In reality, generally, the harder we are on ourselves, the worse we feel, and the more difficult it is to change our behaviors or to do the things that we want to do in tough situations. So I want to give you a tool, which is the RAIN practice. I'm sure if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me talking about it, but the RAIN practice is a self-compassion practice. I learned it from Tara Brach, and I kind of did a mashup of the tools that I learned from Tara Brach and the tools that I learned from Kristen Neff and mashed them up together. I love the acronym RAIN because it makes me think of, like, okay, this is a difficult moment, like a rainstorm, and it will pass, right? Because we often feel like whatever terrible thing is happening, it's like always going to happen. It's always going to feel this way. It's always terrible. It always will be terrible. And that is a very overwhelming thought, right? So I love the acronym RAIN because it's like a reminder too of, like, okay, yes, this is a this is a rainy day moment, but it will pass. It will not rain forever. The sun will come out again. So let's do the RAIN practice together. R, recognize, what are the emotions that I'm feeling right now? Again, the surface level emotions are very easy to identify generally: anger, frustration, on edge. You might also feel like numb, um, I don't care, it doesn't matter. What would those thoughts be? Those are more thoughts than feelings, but it's kind of goes along with numb or indifferent. Maybe that might be it. So as you start to do the RAIN practice more and more, you'll notice other more underlying feelings, like uh, embarrassed, guilty, ashamed, scared, um, worried, sad, disappointed. The more you do the RAIN practice, the more that you'll notice the anger, the frustration, and the other underlying feelings that are also there. So I encourage you to experiment with this often. The A is allow. Can I allow these feelings to be here? So oftentimes, like we've been talking about, we judge ourselves for the feelings or we push them away. We get critical, we blame ourselves, we judge ourselves, or it's so painful, we're like, "Oh, I'm not feeling anything, I'm fine." And we just like move past it, right? Which is totally reasonable, because who wants to feel difficult feelings? And the allow part lets us feel them, and without judging them. So meditation teacher Jeff Warren says, welcome to the party. So you can say, welcome to the party, frustration. In reality, it's more like, oh, welcome to the party, frustration. Welcome to the party, anger. Welcome to the party, disappointment. And I am a very visual person. So I imagine like a bonfire and the kind of like the Inside Out movie where the different characters are the different emotions. So an anger character comes up and I'm like, welcome to the party, anger. And you give them a blanket and they go sit down by the fire. Welcome to the party, frustration. Welcome to the party, exhaustion. Welcome to the party, and on and on and on. All these different emotions that are there. And you give them all a blanket and they sit around the fire or wherever your peaceful scene is. Could be totally different, but you're welcoming all those feelings that we don't that are difficult to feel and we kind of either want to push away or judge ourselves for. I is interconnected. So remembering that we are not alone is is a huge antidote to shame, because shame says I'm bad and I'm the only one. Everyone else has it together and everyone else is doing better. So interconnected is reminding ourselves of common humanity, which is what Kristen Neff talks about. So I'm not alone. Lots of parents struggle with XYZ, fill it in. Reminding yourself in the moment, this is a normal thing to be frustrated about. This is a normal experience to have as a parent. I remember one parenting coach said to me, like, life is messy. Parenting is messy, which was a pretty novel idea. I thought if I just got it in control, then it wouldn't be messy. And when she said that, I was like, oh, so this I just have to accept that I'm not going to be in control and everything's going to be like kind of chaotic all the time. Okay. Again, interconnected. I'm not alone. This is normal. It's normal to have this difficult parenting experience. And then the in is need. What do I need to remind myself in this moment that might help? So, like Kristen Neff offers like compassionate statements like, may I be gentle with myself through this difficult moment. May I be gentle with my kiddo through this difficult moment. That's hard. That's really hard. And the end could also be like texting a friend. It could be texting a partner. It could be taking a walk. It could be journaling. It could be dancing. It could be putting the pause and regroup in and walking you through like offloading that frustration and anger. The end could be lots of different things. Maybe it's like doing that hobby that you love that you never get to do, or taking a bath or a shower. There's so many different things it could be. The in is just kind of recognizing we're struggling and it's okay to be struggling, and it's okay to give ourselves a little something to help us in that moment of struggle. And sometimes the most that we can offer ourselves, which is really powerful, is may I be gentle with myself in this difficult moment, because that one we can say anywhere. We can do that anywhere, and we can tell ourselves that anytime. So you can use the rain practice any time of day, any kind of situation, when any kind of difficult moment comes up. And what I hear from parents indirectly is if I admit that I yell, I feel worse. Like I said earlier, if I pause, I'm going to feel worse. And it is true that looking deeply at ourselves and what's happening inside is challenging. And it's part of the change process. So if you feel difficult emotions coming to the surface, you can remind yourself that that's positive because it's part of the change process. If you are filled with anger and then as you're doing the rain practice, you start to tear up and cry, that is positive because wow, look, you've shifted from the anger into some deeper emotions, which may be difficult. And it is okay, especially if you feel overwhelmed by these emotions, to step out of them and to intentionally give your brain a break from them. Like it could be watching a funny show, watching funny Instagram reels, calling someone to talk about anything but what just happened. That is all normal because we can be overwhelmed by these emotions. Tara Brach talks about this in her book. I think the one is Radical Compassion. And that's really helpful because if we've experienced a traumatic event, sitting with these difficult emotions, it sounds nice, it is helpful, but it can be overwhelming. So if we are out of our window of tolerance where it's like, yeah, Michelle, I tried that and I was like crying for half an hour, you can, if any point, if it feels like too much, you can mindfully say, this is too much for today. I'm gonna actively, intentionally check out and give myself a break from these overwhelming emotions. That is actually an act of mindfulness and self-compassion because you're not doing it unconsciously and you're not doing it automatically. You're doing it very intentionally. So you are, just by listening to this, like, I'm really proud of you for being curious about what's happening inside of you. That takes a lot of courage. And that's why, for parents who want to go deeper, I offer the group support because it's a in the course, there's a group support that provides safety and structure so that you can move through and be curious and learn about your shame, but in a safe place. And also, of course, seeing that other parents struggle is an antidote to shame. I'm not alone, right? It's that reminder you're not alone. So, in summary, shame keeps us stuck. And it makes us want to be alone, away from our family, if not physically, sometimes emotionally, like we're there but not there, you know? Shame makes it more difficult to make the changes we desire. So, that inner critic, while it's there to help us, it's not actually helpful. Self compassion, on the other hand, is helpful. It gives us the support we need to look inside, to be curious about our behaviors, our actions, our reactions, and how we show up. So I'd love for you to give it a try, and I'd love for you to let me know how it goes. You can tell me in an email or the comments or wherever. I want to hear about it. I love hearing from parents because otherwise I'm doing this in a vacuum and I don't know how it's landing for you. So when I hear from a parent, I love it. It's so exciting to see the listeners in different parts of the world and different parts of the country. It really makes me motivated to keep doing it. And when I hear from a parent, it is especially motivating. So whether it be talk about this, what about this, or I tried this and it didn't work, or I tried this and it did work, whatever your comment is, it's going to be helpful to me and I'd like to hear from you. And I will respond to questions. So don't forget about the morning reset. It's a new offer, a new thing that I'm um, sharing with you. It is to help you move your mornings from chaos to connection with 4 practical steps to implement in less than a few hours because we're busy and we don't have time for some long, convoluted thing. And it's to help you move your mornings with your kids from chaos to connection and a connected routine. It's available in a mini course now, and it takes less than an hour with practical takeaways you can start using tomorrow. And before you go, that free gift that you know about, the guided pause and regroup, if you haven't checked it out, please come and check it out and give it a listen. Like, not necessarily in the moment, but like when everything's okay, so you can kind of see like what it's about and if you might find it helpful when you are stuck and when you're overwhelmed with big emotions. I would love to hear how it goes and what works for you about it, and maybe even what doesn't work for you about it. And also, and when you get the guided pause and regroup, or when you just sign up for the newsletter, in the 3rd or 4th email, you're going to get access to the guided meditation, the rain practice, an audio, and a written description. So, another reason to get that guided pause and regroup. A reminder, this content is intended for educational purposes only and should not be a substitute for private psychotherapy services. Compassionate Heart Mindful Life does not provide psychotherapy services in any capacity. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist, and this is not therapy and should not be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need mental health treatment, please find a qualified professional in your area. Thanks so much for listening. The light in me sees the light in you. Be well.